Hey, welcome back to Dumber Every Day. I believe we're on episode 5. I'm going to have to actually start keeping track of this. You think it would be easy, considering I do one every day. So what was yesterday's? I think it was 4. Blah. We're trying new headphones today. I finally got off my ass and went to the storage unit and dug the good ones out. So hopefully we can... Well, it won't really matter for you guys. It kind of is for me, just to be able to hear a little better. And, dummy here, I've been waiting and waiting for the show to populate on Apple Podcasts, and I finally kind of had a minute, and I dug into it tonight. Turns out I had to do one thing for it to show up. So, if Spotify isn't really your jam, and you're like me and you prefer Apple Podcasts for podcasts, then Dumber Every Day is now available in there. And as the show grows, if people want it in more places, I will do the back end work to make that happen. But for now, Spotify and Apple Podcasts are really all I feel the show needs, just for the listener base of me, myself, and I. It's Friday, and I'm sitting at home at 7:17 on a Friday night, drinking, recording a podcast. So what does that say about my social life? Just because the irony is so thick you could cut it with a fucking knife. I did that whole episode last night about May and how I was going to have this conversation with her, that like the level of communication that was kind of happening wasn't really what I was looking for, and maybe go our separate ways. I finished recording the podcast last night and sit down to listen to it. Like, that's kind of the routine, is I'll sit down, I'll record the episode till I fucking run out of things to talk about, or I'm just done, which usually shakes out to about 40-ish minutes so far for the last 5. So I record the show, and then I sit down to listen to it, and that was a longer one. I started late last night, so by the time I'm done listening to the show and deciding if, I need to go back and do any cuts or anything, which I really should have listening back to it. There's a lot of dead air, but it's in the episode description now, so it's coming if you read those. But I'm in bed, and I'm listening to the last 10 minutes, and I pull my phone out, and I have a text from May, and it's a voice note, and I play it, and it's her saying, I'm sorry about this week. I'm sorry I haven't been real chatty. Like, this, that, and the other's going on, but I know how important communication is to you, and I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry, and I'm sorry that I didn't communicate with you. And then I listened back to yesterday's episode again today, and I basically spent 10 minutes being her communication's not there, she's not talking to me, I need more communication in a partner. And then so I kind of just sound like a fucking asshole now. And there's no way I can ever let May know that fucking 2 of these episodes are half about her. But, so that's interesting. And, and for fuck's sake, take a shot every time I say I sound like a valley girl. What is wrong with me? But I was talking to the Frenchman about this today. We've tried to link up twice now, and she's bailed both times. So tomorrow we're supposed to go out. And I was telling the Frenchman, bro, I don't know, man, because I really like her. I'm really into her. We're vibing for the most part. But if tomorrow falls through, I feel I'm going to have to tell her, okay, I've tried to make plans with you 3 times. I've planned the whole thing, made the reservation, all you had to do was show up. And all 3 times, you've bailed on me. The first time was justified. But at this point, if you want to meet me and you want to get together, it's on you now. I'm really sorry, but 3 strikes. So I'm really fingers crossed that tomorrow really works out. Not to sound like a fucking simp here, but I don't know. It's just can something go right in my life for once, for fuck's sake? Like I haven't really talked about this, but like, so when I broke up with January back in October last year, like I went home and we broke up. I packed a suitcase and I moved in with my dad, and it was supposed to be for like 4 months, 5 months, maybe, just enough time to kind of, get a little savings going, because I didn't really have anything, because most of my paycheck went to like paying for January and I's life, because I made like 4 times what she did. So I just kind of fucking paid for everything. But then I moved in with my dad, and I was very lucky, and he was kind enough not to charge me any rent and just kind of let me do my own thing. So I was able to save a substantial, like not substantial, but a good amount of money for me, which was wiped out 2 months before I moved out, because I had bronchitis and was off for a month and a fucking half. So that was like bye-bye savings. But anyway, so it was only supposed to be for like 3 to 6 months that I was going to live with him and my stepmom. And then, shock horror, if you can look at a fucking calendar, I just moved into my new place a few weeks ago. So I was basically living with my dad for almost a full year. And oh man, I'm silly. I can't remember where I was going with this yarn now. Fuck me. Well, that's embarrassing. What the fuck was I talking about? Good grief, I must sound like a mental patient. Anyway. Okay, I have to go back and listen to this now, because that story was going somewhere. Hang tight. I got it. I went back and listened to it. This is going to click. Jeez Louise. Okay, so that story was going somewhere. I was living with my dad for a year, basically, because the rental market in my city is a fucking pile of shit. So, good luck finding an affordable place to live. These landlords are out of their fucking minds. Like the place that January and I... Sorry, the monitoring is being funny. The place that January and I were living before we moved into the place we were living when we broke up, I was paying $1,375 for a 2-bed, 2-bath, basically 1,000 square foot apartment, and an underground parking stall and an outdoor parking spot for the work vehicle I had at the time. And we had moved out and were living in the other place for a year when I started looking again last year. And I reached out to our old landlord and I said, hey man, like, I'm finally starting to like apartment hunt, just to give you the heads up. Like, is it cool if I use you as a reference? Because we lived there for like 4 years. And he comes back and says, well, funny your timing, but the unit is going back on the market in April last year. And would you guys be interested in moving back in? And this dude was like a solid fucking landlord. Like, we lived there for 4 years. I think I saw this dude like 3 fucking times. And all 3 of those times were to re-sign the lease. Except for the year of COVID, we just did it over email. But like, this guy was a thug. And I said, like, hey man, you're a great landlord. Like, we love living there. It's a great building. Some of the neighbors are kind of fucking twats, but that's what you get when you live in an apartment. We'd love to. And he comes back and he said, okay, well, I got put over the barrel renewing my mortgage, so the price has gone up a little bit. Now, keep in mind, when we moved into this place in 2018 or whatever, I'm pretty sure it was like $1,250. And then over the years, it went up because condo fees went up, so we split the difference. And then I added the parking spot that I didn't need when we moved in. So $1,375. We've been moved out for a year. And then mortgage rates went to shit here because of COVID. And now all these landlords are kind of greedy. I'm not saying that this is what this guy was doing. He's a straight shooter. Like, I know he was actually operating at a loss renting this place. So he comes back and says, I had to raise the rent to cover the new mortgage rate that they slapped me with. So the place is going now for $1,850. And I just about fucking fell over. And it was a little heartbreaking to have to go back to him and say, like, hey man, like that's out of my price range. Like, I'm really sorry. I'd love to have you as a landlord again. I'd love to live there again. Like, but I just can't swing that. And at the time, I should have seen that as, I believe it's called foreshadowing, because from that point on, everything in our price range, and by our, I mean mine, because I was paying for fucking everything that was in my price range was one step up from like a slum or a crack house. And there was actually a lot of arguments about this with January and I, because she wanted to live in the downtown core and I wanted to live in the suburbs, and she really, it seemed like, didn't understand where I was coming from when we would go look at these places downtown or in the trendy areas, and she would say, it's perfect, like it's everything we want. And I'm looking down and there's no underground parking, no security, a half-height wooden fence for the parking lot, and I'm looking down at the bums setting up for the night. And I said, you're out of your fucking mind if you think we're living here. Like, I have a newer model vehicle that has very valuable stuff in the back for my job, and the tint's not that good. Like, there is a 1,000% chance some bum is going to smash my fucking window out. We're not living here. And she just could never wrap her head around that. And I was like, this is a non-negotiable. Like, I have a few. Has to have in-suite laundry, has to have a fucking dishwasher, has to have underground fucking parking, especially if we're living in the downtown core. Fuck. And just funnily enough, that was actually one of the reasons she gave when she broke up with me, was that we wanted to live in different places. And I always thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, how are you going to break up with me over that when you've lived rent free for like 6 years? Like, and you haven't paid a bill in 3. Like, you were basically living for free, and I was paying for. This is a whole thing. Anyway, I don't want to. So the point of that original story, getting into living with my dad, is that when I moved in, I was fresh off a breakup with January because I had just broken up with her, and then I started seeing April, and it seemed like, hey, we're in a rough patch, but maybe we couldn't work it out. Narrator voice, they could not work it out. So when I had to go see January for the last time, because she still had some of my stuff and I still had some of her stuff, and a lot of our stuff was mixed up still, I was fresh off a fucking breakup again, like devastated. So I'm really hoping that this isn't like a new trend the universe is throwing at me, where every time I fucking move, I'm going to be like a week or 2 out of a fucking breakup and a wreck doing one of the most stressful things a person can go through. Because I fucking hate moving. But I just thought that was kind of funny that the last 2 times I've moved, I've been an absolute wreck from breakups. So if this could not be a fucking trend, I would really appreciate that from the universe. And we're going to take a little pause break here because I started this prematurely without doing my preparations. So for y'all, it'll be a no break. For me, it'll be a little bit. See you when I see you. And okay, we're back. Honestly, I have to say, fuck. You think I would settle this before I hit record? Like, the absolute irony that this is supposed to be like a journal podcast for me to just kind of talk about shit, and every fucking episode is about dating and relationships and all the girl in my life and my exes. Like, apparently I have some stuff I need to work out. So I don't know, it's like my worst fear and kind of also secret hope that January and April hear this someday, because well, January doesn't know a lot of this. Because when I broke up with her, all I really said was like, I'm not happy anymore. And of course she asked me for like a reason, but at the time I was like, this is brutal. Like, it was, at the time I was like, this is like the worst fucking thing I've ever had to go through. So I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and like run through all the reasons I don't want to be with you anymore, like as just to kick you when you're down. Like, we'll just go with I'm not happy and I don't think it's fixable. And then when she broke up with me, she had no such compulsions. She fucking ran through the list of all my various failings. And then April, like, I've had to extrapolate a lot. I don't really know what happened. There's just kind of no fucking closure. There's no explanation. There was just, you need to work on yourself. Bye. Oh boy. So I just posted a Snapchat that was like, the podcast has become solely about dating, relationships, and my exes. Send topics. And the Rizlord replied and said, "Gay guys doing plumbing." I don't know if we can talk about that without getting canceled. And I'd like to wait till maybe the fucking 70th episode to get canceled, not the 5th. I'm just, this Snapchat made it on the podcast. Oh, that's my boy. Bedwetter. Boy comes down to bed wet in country once and thinks he knows how to be a fucking man. That's too funny. Oh, man. Okay, so we will not be talking about gay guys doing plumbing. That's a very long story. Oh, good. He's at the hockey game and wasted off fucking $10 beers. It's not the first time you've been mentioned on the podcast. You've been mentioned on the podcast, Rizlord. For fuck's sake, can I learn to type? Send. Yeah, maybe somebody will send me a topic so I can stop talking about this shit. But like, at the same time, and this is kind of like, God, I hope May never hears this because it makes me sound like I'm like so still in love with April, and like I'm not. It's just frustrating. It's just a mystery. Like, it's an unsolved mystery, and that's just something I can't stand. Like, I need answers, and I'll never get them. And that's kind of also the other downside of drinking while I do the podcast is that it really like fans the flames on the real self-destructive urge to text her, but will resist because that's probably a really bad idea. Like I said yesterday, like it's a fun game of how badly can I hurt my own fucking feelings. So, oh, brain fart. So it's a big transition period at work coming up soon. This project I'm on there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it seems like it's really finally wrapping up this project, and we'll be on to the next one. And the Frenchman and I are both fingers fucking crossed that we just get to stay together and keep the boys together and just move on to the next one. But I'm such a fucking pessimist and just so jaded. I really don't have high hopes for this, and I tell him that every day. He's like, well, when we're at the next project, I'm like, I'm not going to be at the next fucking project, man. They're going to send me to the one I specifically told them I refuse to go to. And then it's going to be a surprise fucking Pikachu face when I make a stink about it. So look forward to that in episode 10. The sister came back to me, and she cranked through all 4 of the episodes and is eager to sit down and record one about our mother. So that might be happening sooner rather than later. I'm trying to decide if I want to do it remotely or get another mic for her. And I kind of post just pictures of the fucking iPad and the mics and when I'm recording. And I woke up, I posted one this morning of the episode description for yesterday's episode because it just made me laugh. And my mother, light of my life, replied and was like, what's the name of the podcast? I'd love to listen. And I was like, there is no way in hell that I'm telling you what the podcast is called, because I spent like 15 minutes in the last episode talking shit about you and saying that Taylor and I fucking can't stand you. So Oh, and I said her name. Oh, I'm fucking dumb tonight. This has kind of been in my head. So when things were good with April, I was still making voice notes because, like, I was working through things when things were good, because it was a lot of like January never treated me like this. She tried in her own way, but like it wasn't the way I needed. I needed it. And April really kind of understood how to support me, like right out of the gate. It was, I don't want to get too into it because it's gonna sound like I'm still in love with her. But so I had a hard time at the beginning of the relationship, like accepting that support and that positivity from her and the compliments. And like, this is something the therapist is going to start really drilling me on, because I've made the mistake of mentioning that like my physical appearance is something that I'm really not comfortable with, and that I kind of think I'm like the swamp man or something. So I have a feeling the therapist is going to really make me hurt my own feelings and learn to love my physical self. So that's fantastic. But at the time, like, I really struggled to accept these compliments she was giving me, and like the support she was giving me. I didn't know how to receive it because I'd never had it before. So I kind of turned to yelling at my phone and recording voice notes about like what the fuck is wrong with you, guy? Like this, that, and the other. And like some of these will stay in the vault forever and no one will ever hear them. I still think it would be interesting from like an outside perspective, just to kind of see how low I was brought by the withdrawal of April's affection and attention and support, how much that really rocked me when she took it away. Like so suddenly. Good. One of the boys from the out of town job we did replied to the snap and said, "Do a podcast about me." And that would actually be real good listening, because this dude is a fucking rip snorter. His life is so wild. That's funny. I wonder if we should do that. I should get the Frenchman on and we should just trade yarns about fucking this dude. Fuck, that would make for a good podcast. But anyway, so I have like, my naming convention was not very creative here. It was just kind of for me. Like, April knew that I did these and she expressed curiosity, but it was like, what the hell did I name this one? So the first one is actually kind of interesting. And if I ever really get off my duff here and dig into how to pull January and April's real names out of this, the first one actually might be interesting, because like I had a real emotional time, because I've never talked about it. I've never really expressed to anybody how January really made me feel and the damage she did. And April was the first one who kind of made me really confront that and say, like, because her whole thing was like, how can I know that you're not just using me as a stand-in until January is ready to take you back? And I really had to like examine all the reasons that I didn't want to go back to January. And it was really the first time that I had kind of like cataloged the damage she had done and really thought about it and how it had affected me those 9 years. So the first one here is kind of interesting, and it might make for longer podcasts, because like I'm very verbose here apparently. So like some of these are like an hour long, and I almost don't want to go back and listen to them, these early ones, just because like that was when things were good with April, and I don't want to hear how happy I was knowing how fast it was going to turn around, how fucking miserable I was going to be. But So like this first one, volume 1, I just named volume whatever. It was volume 1, thoughts about self-sabotage and the breakup. The second one, volume 2, why am I like this and why overthinking is bad. Dear April, how many times can I say I feel? Volume 3, thoughts on being needy. This one I was fucking mad at her. And that was really like the first time I kind of felt something was going to go wrong, because it was how mad at her I was and how uncomfortable I felt and unable I felt to really express that to her. It felt like her standards were so high that any failing on my part was just going to be the end of the relationship instantly. So this is the beginning of the end here, is when I started the Dear Aprils, because I just kept all this inside and didn't talk to her about it, and she had no idea. And then I would blow up. And she did the same thing. She would keep all this shit inside, and the next thing you know, she's tearing fucking strips off me. And I'm just blindsided. So, and then volume 3, thoughts on being needy. Volume 4, self-recrimination and self-sabotage. Volume 5, selfish things I could never tell you. This is a very interesting one, because it was like things had started to go bad, and I was really unhappy and really mad at the way she was treating me, but I felt like I couldn't tell her because she was going through some shit too. So I had all these things like built up, and I ended up just yelling at my phone for 12 minutes and I'm so tempted some days to really just slip her the link to the podcast. I'm just curious about her thoughts on it. Dear April 2, the cost of loving you. This was a brutal one, because I had booked us a weekend away in like a ski resort town outside of the city, and a nice hotel, and it was supposed to be like a nice break after, like, she had some stuff going on, so it was supposed to be like a break after the first week of that. And an hour before I was supposed to leave to pick her up, she texted me and bailed on me, and barely said sorry, like barely had an explanation for me, and got mad at me when I got upset about it. So like, maybe I should talk about April a little more here, because this is really making me not miss her anymore the more I think about this. But so this was Dear April 2, the cost of loving you. Like, this was me trying to be level-headed, trying to be rational, and explain to her like how she was hurting me with the way she was treating me. And obviously I never sent any of these to her. And the one I did send to her is the one that I think pushed her over the edge and led to the breakup. So, Dear April 3, I'm a bit upset. This is the one I was going to post. It's 10 minutes basically. And it's like 10 minutes of me coming unfucking glued about the way she was treating me, and like how unfair it was. And like the line I remember the most from this one is like, you say you love me and then you turn around and treat me like this. So what is the truth? How can you fucking treat me like this and then turn around in the same fucking breath and tell me that you love me? So it's a rough listen even for me, and I'm the one that said it all. So like, going back and listening to it, this is the one I go back and listen to the most when I start to think like, maybe I should reach out and kind of see where her head's at, because it's the one that reminds me the most about how fast and almost how instantly she turned around and started treating me so poorly. And like, no one has ever made me feel more alone than April did during those last couple weeks. And you know what, honestly, after she bailed on the trip, I should have ended things, but I'm a simp and I loved her, and I really, really thought that there was a way to fix it and a way to salvage it, and there really wasn't. And then the rest of these are just like this volume 6 approaching an ending. This was me kind of trying to tell myself like, you need to calm down or you're going to drive her away, knowing that like, and that's the simp in me, is I was like, why am I defending her when I feel like I haven't done anything wrong? And all this behavior of mine that she has an issue with is a reaction to the way that she's treating me. So I don't know. I'm not perfect, and I made a ton of mistakes in that relationship, and I really regret if she got hurt. I don't know if she did, because by the end, she was so callous and so rude that it was just, she really seemed like she didn't care and just didn't give a fuck about me. So, and then the rest of these are like, I recorded like 6 fucking versions of this voice note I sent to her, trying to explain to her like how she was making me feel and what I needed from her and how unfair it was that she was treating me like this. And I sent her what I thought was the best one, and the next fucking text I got from her was, "We're done." So, and that was a bit of a fucking piss off too. I was like, how are you going to fucking tell me you love me, and then you don't even have the courtesy to break up with me in person? Like, you can't even call me, you can't FaceTime me, you won't meet up with me, you'll send me a 3-sentence text, but you love me. Like, do I have that right? Do I have that straight? So I'm obviously still a little, well, of course I'm still angry about it. Like, nobody likes to be treated like that. Like, it really wasn't fair to me anyway. And it wasn't fair to her, because like, she didn't really know what she was getting into either. I don't think either of us really knew what we were getting into, because fuck, she was just as damaged as I was. She wasn't ready to be in a relationship either, no matter what she said. And I have, in one of those voice notes, like, I had seen a TikTok where it was like, there's no such thing as the right person at the right time or the right person at the wrong time. It's just the right person at the time that you were supposed to meet them. And I thought that April was that person, because she made me feel like $1 million. And I really relied too heavily on those positive affirmations from her, and the way that made me feel. And when it was taken away, it was like getting hit upside the head with a fucking hammer, and it hurt so bad. And like, she doesn't know any of this because she never cared enough to ask. So I don't know, maybe this is the one to send her, just cut all the parts about Mayo so she doesn't know I'm dating so soon, and then fuck, here you go. Here's what you did. Here's the damage you caused. And tell me how I hurt you, if at all. But, and then, yeah, so like, the voice notes were helpful, because it was a way to get all this shit out that I should have been talking to April about, but I couldn't, because she made me feel like it didn't matter and I was crazy. And now I can go back and listen to it and be like, what was wrong with you, man? Why were you so willing to be treated like this by someone who showed you so clearly that she didn't care, and probably, didn't love you, and really regretted getting into the relationship and saying that to you? So it is what it is, honestly, at this point. And I'm talking about this just made me realize I haven't gotten my evening text from my dad. How's the day? I was giggling about that all day. So I don't know. And Taylor, fuck, I gotta cut that out too. I gotta figure out how to cut that out. Anyway, the sister, I think this is kind of, me doing this is kind of interesting for her, because after the first one, she had said, like, it's an interesting look into your head, because, what did she say? Sorry, this one's a lot of me being on the fucking phone. It was a privilege to hear some of your insights, especially because I know I don't always get the full spectrum of what you're going through, which kind of makes me realize, like, I probably could share my feelings a little bit more with her. I don't, but excuse me. So this is definitely like an interesting, for my sister anyway, look into like the inner workings of my weird mind, and kind of, because a lot of this is like, nobody knows this stuff, and now the internet knows, which is basically everyone. So Lord help me if anybody I know stumbles across this, but It's just kind of made me realize how closed off I am, even to the people who like matter the most. And again, it's a failure of I never learned how to communicate properly. And I'm so conflict averse that even like a normal conversation about setting boundaries and this kind of stuff and being honest about how I'm feeling and kind of what's on my mind beyond a surface level, it feels like a minor confrontation to me. And it just like, I want to die. And it just almost kicks me into fight or flight like instantly. As soon as there's, what the fuck? Oh, it's my sister. So maybe doing the podcast will kind of help me be able to open up more to the people that love me and that I love in my life. The podcast made me a better father. I don't have children, but it's that those people who are like, being an alcoholic helped me love my children more. And fuck, the annoying thing is every time I sit down to do the podcast, I won't have heard from May for like 2 or 3 hours. As soon as I fucking hit record, she's texting McTexterson and wants to talk. So, we're debating if I want to send, because my mom messaged me this morning and was like, what's the podcast called? I think I had said that already, but I told the sister, like, I'm tempted to just send it to her just to see the reaction it'll get. And she's not wrong. She said, I would not be surprised if she posted the link on Facebook being like, see, my kids are awful. I'm not the fucking problem, which is so true. That's 100% what my mom would do. Just dox me. Okay, while we're kind of in between topics here, the therapist has said that she would like me to integrate the writing I do for her more into the podcast. And I had told her, like, it's difficult because when I have to read something I've written, it really comes out as I read it, it's just stilted. I'm just never been very good at public speaking and reading off a page without it sounding, oh my God, they're back. Fantastic. Without it sounding like I'm reading something and just the inflections are wrong and blah, blah, blah. So maybe that's something I'll try and do when I do this week's homework, because I feel like it was a good little assignment. Therapy stuff, view note. This note is getting gargantuan with all the therapy shit in here. Yeah, this week's homework. What would it take to make me believe the positives about myself and to have confidence? What does confidence look like in me? What will it take to make me believe in that confidence? So the therapist is really kicking the difficulty up in the homework, because like last week was like, what are some negative things you believe about yourself and why do you believe them? And it was actually kind of a really interesting thing to do, because like I started off with like, well, the first negative thing I believe about myself is like, I don't have any worth. I don't have any value. Like, I am worthless. I was born to suffer. Like, that's kind of my lot in life. And then every other point after that could be traced back to the belief that I don't have worth. So it was kind of interesting to see how like one thing can have all these secondary and tertiary and quaternary, if that's even a word, effects that have affected me for like my entire adult life. Let's just pull that up and have the old look-see at it. This is about April when things were going bad. Yeah, so I'd say the first and biggest one is the belief that I inherently have no worth or value. We've touched on this a bit the last few weeks, that I was born to suffer, that idea. But the general belief is that I have nothing valuable to add to the world, that I have no worth, that the people in my life only keep me around out of pity. I think a lot of this may come from how my self-worth is and was tied to external validation, as well as being treated like an option or not a priority by a lot of the important relationships in my life since I was a teenager. Obviously, I'm learning that none of this is true, and I think setting some boundaries in regards to how I'm willing to be treated will help with this as well. By allowing myself to be walked all over, I'm only reinforcing the belief that I have no value. That has to change because I don't deserve to be treated the way I have been and am by some. So a lot of this was about January and April, and even friends in my life. Like some people have really treated me like a doormat because I was more than willing to. So January treated me like a doormat half the fucking time because I showed her like I'm willing to pay for everything and I'm willing to this and that and the other to avoid a fight. And then obviously we've kind of talked about it and touched on it in this episode in the last few, but like April really, really treated me like that. And I was more than willing to let it happen. And then we get into the second one here, the belief that I don't believe I'm worthy of love. And it must be true because everyone I've ever loved romantically has either left me, betrayed me, or both. And this kind of, betrayed is a weird word, but I couldn't think of. Sometimes I leave this shit to the last minute and then I'm rushing to like type all this out. Betrayed might be too strong of a word, but like the girl I dated in high school, and this was 15 years ago, and it really did leave a mark for a long fucking time. But by the end of the relationship, she had cheated on me with 6 different guys. And the joke I tell people is, when I talk about it, is I say 6, I mean 5.5, because one of the dudes had one leg. But, and that really fucked me up for a long time. And it still kind of does to this day. Like I have trust issues a lot, and then left me. Well, January left me, but after I left her, and April left me for something, this, that, or the other. We still don't know why. Anyway, and if these people who say they love me would be so willing to hurt me or leave me, then did they really love me? And if they did, am I even worthy of that love since it was so easy for all of them to leave? This is funny because, well, not funny, but this is mostly January and April, because when January ended things, she basically cut all contact. Like never reached out to me, never to see how I was doing. It was always me being like, how's it going? Like, do you need anything? And that fucked me up because I was like we were together for 9 years and it was so easy. It seems like for you to just completely cut all contact with me. And she would just say like, well, I have to take care of myself. Like I've learned to live without you these last few. So that one really fucked me up. And then same thing with April. Like she just, when I told her, like, this is how you're making me feel, and this is what I need to change because I want this to work, she just left. This belief is probably heavily tied into the belief that I have no value. How can something with no value be worthy of love? So to change one is to change the other. I feel like there may be some domino effects as we start to address some of these things, where a breakthrough in one area will lead to an epiphany in another. But I'm slowly learning to believe, with your help and your being the therapist, that neither of these are true. They're just so deep-seated that it'll take some time to correct the course. And yes, this is true. I have basically, since I was 18 years old, believed that I'm not worthy of love because of the way the girl in high school, the way that went. And that was a terrible relationship. Like, we should not have been together for as long as we had. I don't know why she stayed. I don't know why I stayed. It was puppy love. Here we go. And then I kind of touched on this earlier in this episode. My least favorite one to talk about, but the belief that I'm physically unattractive. I have a hard time believing people when they compliment my physical appearance because I don't believe it about myself. This one was on my mind on and off, and I wonder if it comes from rejection from sexual partners. There was a lot of that with January in the back half of our relationship, as well as the girl that I dated in school. So like, yeah, obviously the girl I dated in high school cheating on me with 6 fucking guys that I know of is really going to wreck your self-esteem. And then January and I, they're like, this is TMI, so we won't get too deep into it, but we had a lot of like dead bedroom problems on the back half of the relationship. And it was really something that I tried to address over and over and over, and she just didn't want to deal with. So over time, that kind of led me to believe like, well, I'm unattractive. Like I'm not physically attractive because this person who says they love me and I'm sharing my life with doesn't want to be intimate with me. So like that belief is not so strongly reinforces the other ones, but it's not just tied into like sexual intimacy and stuff. There's a lot of like, I just kind of don't feel like I'm attractive. And I have this big fuck you beard that I grow, and I tell people it's my fuck off beard. Like, I want to look intimidating so people don't want to talk to me. So, but the beard might be coming off. I'm just kind of waiting for this first date with May so she can see me with it, and then I can shave it off. Oh yeah, here, I should just read the next fucking sentence. And every time I'd be rejected, it just led me to believe that some part of that rejection must be because they found me unattractive, which led to the belief that I am unattractive. This one may be the hard. I don't even remember writing that. This one may be the hardest to overcome because I kind of despise looking at myself. Not in a body dysmorphia kind of way, just a hate myself kind of way. And that's just kind of like my body's average. Oh, fuck. Crash, bang, boom. That's what I like to say about myself, is that I'm just kind of average in every way, like average body type, average weight for a guy my age and weight, like average height, the average looks in my mind. But I don't know. This is the one I really don't want to work on the most, but I know the therapist is going to make me. And then I'm not sure how many we're looking for, but this comes up a lot in the Frenchman and I's conversations. The belief that I'm not smart. He's constantly been telling me for years that he knows I intentionally underperform or don't volunteer when I know something, and he's correct. I'm genuinely not sure where this one came from. I'm wondering if maybe it's something to do with my dislike of positive attention or fear of letting people down. Because once someone knows that I do have half a brain, that's the level they'll come to expect from me, and I don't like that because it makes me feel like anything below that level is failure, even when it's not. So I tend to try and stay middle of the pack so that not much is expected of me. And the Frenchman's been saying this for years. He's like, he'll say like, you intentionally make yourself out to be less intelligent than you are. And he's not. I do that because, and it's really the worst possible source for it, but it is. The thing that always comes to mind when I talk about this and think about this is like a Sons of Anarchy quote. And I think he says, like, I'm tired of the expectations, or I don't bow to the expectations of other men, because when people see greatness, they expect... No, I got it fucking backwards. Fuck, I'm silly goose. When people see greatness, they expect greatness, and I'll bow to no man's expectations. And that's kind of like... I don't want to be expected to perform at a certain level. Like, just because I can at times doesn't mean that I want to all the time. So I'd rather set the bar low so that when I do have to go above and beyond, it's a nice change of pace for everyone. But the Frenchman might be right. I should probably not be intentionally underplaying this myself. Excuse me. I forgot to breathe while I'm reading this. And then this last one, like the belief that I'm not deserving of positive attention. This is when I know for sure you've definitely noticed, you being the therapist. I kind of write these as like letters to the therapist. It's just easier that way. I cannot take a compliment to save my life. It makes my skin crawl. I want nothing positive said about me. And this is another one I'm not sure where it comes from. Although thinking about it logically, this could be a secondary or tertiary effect of believing I have no value. If I believe I have no value, then anyone giving me a compliment must either be a fool or a liar. If I can't believe a positive thing about myself, why would anyone else? So, like, it's kind of interesting to see how one belief that started fuck knows when can really have this, like, spiraling effect. For fuck's sake, Snapchat, suck me in the dick hole. Can really... Sorry, this is bad podcasting. Yeah, like one belief can really kind of just negatively affect every other part of my life. So the therapist was very fascinated by this too. And she's going to make me address all this stuff, and it's going to hurt my feelings. And I'm really not looking forward to it, but it'll be for the better in the end. So, but I think that's about going to do it for this episode tonight. Not to leave you guys on a big old cliffhanger here, but I'm kind of just out of gas now. So, Real abrupt ending here. Sorry, but it's my fucking podcast. I'll do what I want. So, thanks for listening. And as usual, the usual call out. If I haven't told you about the podcast, where'd you hear it from? Put it in the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of the episode page on Spotify. Spotify only. Apple Podcasts won't have it. So thank you for listening. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you listen to this, and I will catch you guys on the next one, hopefully with a positive report about May. So take care of yourselves, and I will see you all next time. Hooroo.